Hi. Welcome to the 6th session in our Philosophy 1596 course on #Echoes of Enlightenment, Baroque Literature at Berg Mountain University, where today we have outlined a study with Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Come along with us.
Fifth literary figure. A study with Gottfried W. Leibniz. 1646 to 1716. Germany, with the invention of the printing press in 1440, reproduced the Bible first, perhaps benefited them more so for the promotion of the German language, wherein Gottfried W. Leibniz was invested its wealth. What wealth is other than education or understanding is beyond us, but German-speaking people were divided as much politically as religiously in the 17th century. Lutheranism was still in its infancy, and with no one kingdom to unite them in peace, violence and political strife were the order of the day. Cuius regio, eius religio, whose realm, their religion, would render western regions remaining, perhaps from proximity, heavily Catholic, with Protestant thought nurtured in the east further from Rome. The 30 Years' War had just ended in October of 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia, when the young Leibniz was but 1 year and a little over 3 months old, where before the formation of the German Kingdom of Prussia in 1701 under the Dutchy of Prussia. The background is eclipsed by our story. Prussian kings came from the House of Hohenzollern as hereditary rulers of its duchy, founded in 1525 from the Teutonic order, as 37th Grand Master Albert converted to Lutheranism. The Elector of Brandenburg from 1640 to 1688 was Duke Frederick Wilhelm of Hohenzollern, where his son Frederick I would follow, becoming King of Prussia in 1701, engulfing Leibniz's life. Louis XIV, the Sun King, was so of France, all but Leibniz's last year. More visible in Enlightened figures is Protestantism as Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, whose accessibility to information produced a superior scholar and philosopher, culminating in the publication of Théodicée.
Becoming more visible is Enlightened figures being more Protestant than not as Gottfried von Leibniz. Born to Katharina Sundstruck of Frederick Leibniz was Gottfried Wilhelm, who, perhaps inheriting the cause of his father, furthered the cause of Enlightenment through Baroque literature. Gottfried's father was a moral philosophy professor at Leipzig University in 1640, where by 1646 he was chairman of the department's faculty as well, while still an actuary. Leipzig was, perhaps then as it is now, the most populous Saxony cities in the German state. Since 1440 and the advent of Johannes Gutenberg's printing press, freedom of speech had been possible, where after 200 years of design, production, and improvements it was more probable, but books were still like treasures demanded by more that could be supplied. Though countless Bibles were produced by the mid-17th century, the revolutions of science and industry literacy came with not only a desire for further enlightenment but also the will to share knowledge discovered with others amicably. Born on the 1st of July, Gottfried's father wrote 21. Juni am Sonntag 1646 ist mein Sohn Gottfried Wilhelm, post sextum vespertinam 1/4 of 7 Uhr abends zur White geboren, ein Wassermann. Sunday, June 21, 1646, my son Gottfried Wilhelm, post at sextum vespertinam 6:45 in the evening, was born into the world in Aquarius. We consider him born on the 1st of July because it was on the Gregorian calendar we use today, as the Julian was then used in the Holy Roman Empire. There has always been a separation of church and state, as both are administrated by men who fallible had Protestants retreat from the church to the state. Behind the state a wealth of ideas could be expressed, and diversity of thought was nurtured in an enlightenment in Baroque literature. Gottfried's was as well.
Gottfried Leibniz had an accessibility to information which produced an exceptional scholar, gentleman, and philosopher. Frederick Leibniz, having acquired a sizable library since completing his master's at the University of Leipzig 1622, being an actuary at the university, 3 wives, and 3 children. Dying in 1652, when Gottfried was only 6, Frederick left Gottfried to inherit his library. Imperialism arose as exploring revealed previously seemingly ungoverned lands with wealths of raw materials that could be used to build. From the bounties of empiricism, architects' autonomy allowed for imagination, resulting in Baroque architecture. Gottfried's raw material were his father's books, which mostly in Latin had him proficient at age 12, and of numerous subjects he became a polymath and example of German superiority. Baroque literature, just as Baroque architecture as raw materials throughout the empire, are united in art. Enrolling at the University of Leipzig at 14 in 1661, he'd earned his bachelor's the next year, a master's in 1664 and a bachelor's of law in 1665. He enrolled at the University of Altdorf, earning his doctorate in law in 1666. He preferred von to Wilhelm as an adult, but many posthumous publications add Freiherr, free man, as a prefix.
Gottfried von Leibniz, a rationalist, an idealist, became the Brunswick ducal librarian and left a wealth of philosophical writings such so we now identify as Baroque. His writings began with his thesis Metaphysical Disputation on the Principle of Individuation, explained his Principle of Individuation, and his dissertation essay of Collected Philosophical Problems of Right in 1664, and on Conditions in 1665. On the Combinatorial Art in 1666 proved God's existence, geometric in form and inferred from motion's argument. He wrote a thesis entitled Inaugural Disputation on Ambiguous Legal Cases in 1666 too. Proceedings of the Learned was a mathematical journal published in 1682 with Otto Menck. In 1686 he composed Discourse on Metaphysics and his new essays on Human Understanding in 1690, referring Locke's Monadology, written in 1714, was one of his more popular works, with 90 aphorisms and monad theory being centers of forces presented. In his famous Théodicée in 1710 he posits his rationale and proof of God's existence from sufficient reason and the law of non-contradiction, concluding the monas monadum, the monad's monad or God exists. From Théodicée comes Théodicée, or seeing God's providence through his opposite.
Enlightenment figures being more Protestant than not, Leibniz's inherited library of books produced rendered him educationally superior to most and a producer of Baroque literature. Not that others hadn't, but Leibniz being a monad proves he was so from this report on him. His works explain ontology, where of monads he was but one. We all are but one, where remembered today, he is with us now.
That concludes the information we have for you this session. Upon your return we will cover our 6th literary figure in a study with Sir Isaac Newton. We can't wait to see you there. Farewell and drive safe, until next time. Thank you for your time and consideration.